My name is John, and this is the story of my unforgettable trip to London. Ever since I was young, I had dreamed of visiting this historic city. With its grand palaces, red double-decker buses, and the timeless charm of Big Ben. Now that dream was finally coming true. As I packed my suitcase, I couldn't stop thinking about all the places I wanted to see. The Tower of London, Buckingham Palace, the British Museum. I had read so much about these landmarks, but now I was about to experience them in real life. The day of my flight arrived, and as I boarded the plane, excitement mixed with a little nervousness. Would I be able to navigate the city alone? Would my English be good enough to talk to locals? I pushed my worries aside. This was my chance to explore, to learn, and to create memories I would never forget. As the plane touched down at Heathrow Airport, I took a deep breath and smiled. My London adventure was just beginning. As I stepped off the plane at Heathrow Airport, a rush of excitement filled me. I had finally arrived in London. The airport was busy, filled with travelers from all over the world. After collecting my luggage, I followed the signs to the Underground, London's famous subway system. I bought an Oyster card, just like the locals, and boarded the Piccadilly line. The train rattled through dark tunnels, stopping at different stations along the way. I watched people come and go, some reading newspapers, others listening to music. Everything felt new and exciting. After a 40-minute ride, I reached Westminster, where my hotel was located. As I stepped outside the station, my eyes widened in amazement. Right in front of me stood Big Ben, its golden hands shining against the cloudy sky. The sight of the iconic clock tower made me realize I was really in London. I checked into my hotel, quickly freshened up, and without wasting any time, I set out to explore. My first stop was the River Thames. Walking along the riverbank, I saw the famous London Eye, a giant Ferris wheel offering stunning views of the city. I decided to buy a ticket and take a ride. As the glass capsule slowly rose into the sky, I looked down at the breathtaking view, Tower Bridge in the distance, the Houses of Parliament standing proudly, and the endless streets of London stretching beyond. I couldn't believe I was here, experiencing it all firsthand. As the sun started to set, the city lights began to twinkle. I knew this was only the beginning of my London adventure, and I couldn't wait to see what the next day would bring. The next morning, I woke up early, eager to start my first full day in London. After a quick breakfast at a cozy cafe near my hotel, I grabbed my map and planned my route. My first destination was Buckingham Palace, the home of the British monarch. As I walked through St. James's Park, I admired the peaceful lake, the elegant swans gliding across the water, and the neatly arranged flower beds. The crisp morning air filled me with energy. When I finally reached Buckingham Palace, a crowd had already gathered outside. Everyone was waiting for the famous changing of the guard ceremony. Soon the sound of drums and trumpets filled the air as soldiers in red uniforms and tall black hats marched in perfect unison. It was an incredible sight. The ceremony lasted about 45 minutes, and I was fascinated by the discipline and tradition. From there, I walked to Trafalgar Square, where I stood in front of the National Gallery. The grand building housed some of the world's most famous paintings. Inside, I saw masterpieces by artists like Van Gogh and Leonardo da Vinci. It was amazing to see these paintings up close after only seeing them in books before. By afternoon, I was getting hungry. I decided to try fish and chips, a classic British dish. I found a small pub near Covent Garden, ordered my meal, and took my first bite. The crispy golden batter and soft, flaky fish were delicious. As I ate, I watched street performers entertain the crowds outside. A violinist played a beautiful tune, while a magician amazed people with his tricks. As the sun began to set, I made my way to the Tower of London, one of the most historic places in the city. The stone walls and old towers told stories of kings, queens, and prisoners from centuries ago. I even got to see the crown jewels sparkling with diamonds and gold. By the time I returned to my hotel, I was exhausted but happy. My first full day in London had been everything I had hoped for, and there was still so much more to see. The next morning, I woke up feeling refreshed and excited for another day of adventure. After a quick breakfast of toast and tea, I checked my itinerary. Today's plan? A deep dive into London's history, starting with the British Museum. As I stepped inside the Grand Museum, I was immediately surrounded by history. The massive glass roof of the great court allowed sunlight to pour in, illuminating the ancient artifacts around me. I wandered through the exhibits, stopping to admire treasures like the Rosetta Stone, which helped scholars decode Egyptian hieroglyphs, and the Elgin marbles, sculptures from the Parthenon in Greece. Each hall told a different story about ancient Rome, medieval knights, and lost civilizations. I imagined the hands that had once held these objects centuries ago. It felt like stepping back in time. After spending hours in the museum, I walked to Covent Garden, a lively area full of street performers, boutique shops, and charming cafes. I grabbed a warm pastry from a bakery and sat on a bench, watching the energy of the city around me. A group of musicians played classical music, and a juggler amazed the crowd with his tricks. In the afternoon, I decided to visit Sherlock Holmes's museum at 221B Baker Street. As a fan of detective stories, I was thrilled to explore the recreated home of the famous fictional detective. The rooms were filled with old books, magnifying glasses, and mysterious objects. For a moment, I imagined myself as a detective, solving a case in the foggy streets of London. As the day turned to evening, I made my way to Tower Bridge. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange. I walked across the bridge, feeling the cool breeze from the Thames. The lights of London started to twinkle, and the city felt even more magical at night. Before heading back to my hotel, I stopped by a small cafe for a cup of hot chocolate. As I sipped my drink, I reflected on my journey so far. London had already given me so many unforgettable memories, and I knew there was still more to discover. The next morning, I decided to visit one of London's most famous landmarks, Windsor Castle. I took a train from Paddington Station, enjoying the scenic journey as the city slowly faded into the English countryside. Within an hour, I arrived at Windsor, where the grand castle stood proudly on a hill, its stone walls glowing under the morning sun. As I walked through the castle grounds, I imagined the centuries of history that had unfolded here. I explored St. George's Chapel, where many British royals were buried, and then visited the state apartments, filled with golden chandeliers, majestic paintings, and elegant furniture. Everything looked like a scene from a fairy tale. After my royal experience, I returned to London and decided to explore some hidden gems of the city. Instead of visiting another famous landmark, I took a walk through Leadenhall Market, a beautiful covered marketplace with colorful shops and restaurants. The place had an old-world charm, and I later learned that it was used as a filming location for some scenes in the Harry Potter movies. Feeling hungry, I stopped at a small cafe in Soho, a lively neighborhood known for its diverse food scene. I tried a traditional English afternoon tea complete with scones, jam, and clotted cream. The warm, flaky scone melted in my mouth, and I smiled, savoring the moment. In the evening, I headed to the West End, London's famous theater district. I had booked a ticket to see a musical at one of the historic theaters. As the curtains rose and the music filled the hall, I felt a deep appreciation for the city's artistic spirit. The performance was mesmerizing, and for a few hours I was completely lost in the world of storytelling and music. Walking back to my hotel that night, I realized how much I had fallen in love with London. The city had everything: history, culture, adventure, and a touch of magic. I knew my journey was coming to an end soon, but there was still one more day to explore. On my last full day in London, I wanted to make every moment count. I started my morning with a peaceful walk along the South Bank, where the River Thames shimmered under the early sunlight. Street artists painted on sidewalks, joggers ran past, and the aroma of fresh coffee filled the air from small cafes. I grabbed a cup and sipped it slowly, taking in the view of Tower Bridge, the Shakespeare's Globe Theatre, and the distant silhouette of St. Paul's Cathedral. For my final adventure, I decided to visit Camden Market, one of London's most unique and vibrant areas. The market was alive with energy, music playing, colorful street art covering the walls, and stalls selling everything from vintage clothes to handmade jewelry. I tried a delicious plate of international street food, choosing a mix of Thai noodles and freshly made churros. In the afternoon, I took a bus to Primrose Hill, a quiet spot known for its stunning views of the city skyline. Sitting on the grass, I watched as London stretched out before me, Big Ben, the Shard, and the London Eye standing tall in the distance. A cool breeze passed through, and I felt grateful for every moment I had spent in this incredible city. As the sun set, I made my way to my final stop, the Shard, the tallest building in London. I took the elevator up to the viewing platform on the 72nd floor. As I stepped out, I was met with a breathtaking panoramic view of the city, now glowing under the golden-orange sky. Lights twinkled below, the Thames reflected the city's brilliance, and for a moment, time seemed to stand still. I took a deep breath, knowing this was the perfect way to end my journey. London had given me memories I would cherish forever. It wasn't just the landmarks or the food, it was the feeling of being part of something bigger, of walking through history while embracing the present. The next morning, as I boarded my flight home, I looked out of the window one last time. I knew that this was not a goodbye, but a see you again. London had become a part of my story, and one day I would return to write another chapter. As the plane took off from Heathrow Airport, I leaned back in my seat and gazed out of the window. The bright lights of London slowly faded into the distance, but the memories I had made in the city remained vivid in my mind. During my time in London, I had walked through centuries of history, from the grand halls of Windsor Castle to the ancient walls of the Tower of London. I had marveled at the beauty of Big Ben, felt the magic of the West End, and enjoyed peaceful moments by the River Thames. Each place had its own story, and I felt privileged to have experienced them firsthand. Beyond the landmarks, What truly made my trip special were the little moments, the laughter of street performers in Covent Garden, the warmth of a fresh scone during afternoon tea, the quiet joy of watching the sunset from Primrose Hill. These were the details that made London feel more than just a city on a map. It became a place that felt like home, even if only for a short time. I also reflected on how the trip had changed me. Traveling alone in a foreign country had been a challenge, but it had given me confidence. I had navigated the underground, spoken with locals, tried new foods, and embraced new experiences. My English had improved as I interacted with people, and I realized that storytelling wasn't just about writing, it was about living experiences worth telling. As I sat in my seat, I opened my notebook and began to write. London had given me more than just memories. It had given me inspiration. I knew that this was only the beginning of my journey as a storyteller. With a smile, I closed my notebook and looked out at the endless sky. I didn't know where my next adventure would take me, but one thing was certain. This trip had changed me, and I would carry London with me wherever I went. As the plane landed back home, a wave of mixed emotions washed over me. I was happy to be back in familiar surroundings, yet a part of me already missed the energy of London. The towering landmarks, the historic streets, the magic of discovering something new every day. Stepping out of the airport, I felt different. The trip had changed me in ways I hadn't expected. Before, I had been nervous about traveling alone, about speaking English in a foreign country. But now, I felt more confident. I had navigated London's busy streets, interacted with people from different cultures, and experienced a world beyond my own. As I unpacked my suitcase, I smiled at the small souvenirs I had brought back. A keychain of Big Ben, a postcard from Camden Market, and a notebook filled with thoughts and stories I had written during my journey. Each item was a reminder of an unforgettable experience. In the following days, I found myself reminiscing about London more and more. The way the city lit up at night, the feeling of standing on Tower Bridge, the peaceful moments in Hyde Park, all of it played in my mind like scenes from a beautiful film. But more than anything, I missed the feeling of adventure, the excitement of waking up in a new place, ready to explore. I realized something important. This was just the beginning. My trip to London had sparked something inside me, a desire to see more, to learn more, and to tell more stories. I didn't want my journey to end here. And so, as I sat at my desk, flipping through my travel journal, I asked myself, where should I go next? Days passed, but my thoughts remained in London. The experience had awakened something deep inside me, a passion for travel, discovery, and storytelling. I no longer wanted to just read about the world. I wanted to see it, feel it, and write about it from my own perspective. As I went back to my daily routine, I noticed how much I had changed. My confidence in speaking English had grown, and I found myself eager to have conversations with people, something I used to hesitate about. I also had a new appreciation for history, art, and different cultures. The world felt bigger now, full of places waiting to be explored. One evening, as I sat at my desk flipping through my travel journal, I decided I wasn't going to stop here. London was just the first chapter. There were so many other cities with their own stories waiting to be discovered. But where would I go next? I started researching destinations. Should I visit Paris, the city of romance and art? Or maybe New York, the city that never sleeps, filled with energy and ambition? Or perhaps Tokyo, a perfect mix of tradition and futuristic wonders. Each place had its own unique charm, its own stories to tell. As I stared at the world map, excitement filled me. Traveling wasn't just about seeing new places, it was about learning, growing, and collecting stories to share. I picked up my pen and wrote in my journal. The journey continues. With my travel journal open in front of me, I started making a list of places I wanted to visit next. Each city had something special to offer. Paris, with its rich art and beautiful streets. New York, with its towering skyscrapers and fast-paced life. Tokyo, a place where ancient traditions met modern technology. I thought about what I wanted from my next journey. In London, I had explored history, culture, and storytelling. Maybe my next trip should focus on something new, food, nature, or even meeting people from different backgrounds. I researched flights, accommodations, and must-visit places. The idea of another trip excited me, but I also knew that I had to prepare. London had taught me that traveling wasn't just about seeing places. It was about experiencing them fully. This time I wanted to plan more carefully, to make sure I didn't miss anything important. At the same time, I realized that my storytelling had grown. My experiences in London had given me new ideas, and I wanted to write about them. Maybe I could turn my travel stories into a book or a blog, sharing my journey with others. As I looked at my list of destinations, I smiled. The world was full of stories waiting to be told, and I was ready to find them. My next adventure was calling. I just had to choose where to go first. As I closed my travel journal, I reflected on how much this journey had changed me. My trip to London was more than just a vacation. It was an experience that shaped me as a traveler, a storyteller, and a dreamer. I had walked through centuries of history, tasted new flavors, met people from different cultures, and embraced the excitement of the unknown. I had learned that travel wasn't just about visiting places, but about seeing the world through new eyes, understanding different perspectives, and growing with each step. London was the beginning of something bigger. It had given me the confidence to explore beyond my comfort zone, to trust in my ability to navigate new challenges, and to express myself through storytelling. I knew that wherever I went next, I would carry this experience with me. As I placed my London souvenirs on my desk and flipped through the photos on my phone, I smiled. My journey wasn't ending. It was just evolving. The world was full of stories waiting to be told, and I was ready to discover them. With a deep breath, I picked up my pen and wrote the final words in my journal. Every journey has an ending, but every ending is just the beginning of a new adventure.